Hello friends, I welcome you all to another edition of Daily News Analysis. So in this particular edition, we are going to discuss some very important articles. The first article that we are going to discuss is about India-EU strategic partnerships. So in the wake of EU's new strategic roadmap for India, this particular analysis is important from the perspective of GS2 international relations. Another important article is about COP30 talks on updating climate goals. So the upcoming COP30 will be organized by Brazil. So what sort of climate commitments the different countries are making? Important analysis again from the perspective of GS3 environment. Another important article from the perspective of GS3 defense is titled Army to set up 19 drone training centers at premier academies. So again, important analysis in the wake of drone warfare, hybrid warfare currently ongoing, say in Russia-Ukraine war or even in Israel-Hamas war as well. So the importance of drones important from the perspective of GS3 defense related analysis. Another important article is about India's new national policy on geothermal energy. So important geothermal energy related update, particularly vital from the perspective of energy security in GS3. At the same time, in the decoded section, we are going to discuss from the perspective of disaster management, important article titled Securing Valleys and Slopes. So some very interesting and innovative solutions you will find in that particular article. So stay tuned for that particular analysis from the perspective of disaster management as well. So the first article that we are going to discuss is about EU rolling out new strategic roadmap for India. So in this particular analysis, the European Union has set out a plan to upgrade its strategic ties with India. So again, as I earlier said, important update from the perspective of GS2 international relations at a time when New Delhi is taking one step at a time in dealing with the US administration under President Donald Trump. The European Union announced a new strategic agenda to raise bilateral relationships with India to a higher level, more strategic level. So remember this particular title here, a new strategic agenda to raise bilateral relations with India to higher level. So this particular analysis, this particular strategy paper has been released by EU. This includes a range of areas from trade and technology to defense, security, connectivity and climate change. So these are broad range of cooperation areas outlined in that particular new EU-India strategy. Announcing the initiative, European Commission President said, now is the time to double down on partnerships rooted in shared interests and guided by common values. With our new India-EU strategy, we are taking our relationship to the next level. Earlier, the European Commission and its High Representative adopted a joint communication outlining new strategic India-EU agenda. The EU views India as the world's largest growing major economy, which is a vital partner. The EU document welcomes India's rise as a global power, which creates new opportunities for strategic cooperation. India's success benefits EU just as the EU's success benefits India. So to a certain extent, EU views the relationship with India on priority from the perspective of, say, mutual benefit and respect for the sovereignty. So India-EU relations, there are certain opportunities as well as the challenges at the same time. First and foremost challenge is concern over ties of India with Russia. So EU Commissioner expressed concern about India's participation in Russian military exercises and continued purchase of Russian oil. Ironic given the EU itself purchases Russian oil. At the same time, these factors are often seen as obstacle to deeper India-EU ties and have raised by the EU in the past itself. So as I earlier mentioned here, that India's participation in Russian military exercise is problematic for, say, EU. So what are these bilateral military exercises that are ongoing or have taken place between the India and Russia, particularly militaries? So the joint military exercise between India and Russia is called Indra. So remember this particular point here from the perspective of prelims. It is a biennial exercise aimed at enhancing interoperability and fostering closer military ties between the two nations. So the military exercise between two countries, India and Russia, is called Indra. The exercises cover various domains including land, sea, air operations and have been conducted since 2003. In addition to the regular Indra exercises, India has also participated in ZAPID 2025 military drills as well. So, what exactly is this ZAPID military drills? So, these are the bilateral military exercises between Russia and Belarus, which are currently ongoing, and India has participated in those military drills as well. And that, ZAPID military exercise between, say, Russia and Belarus has, raised concerns in EU. So, India's participation is again viewed with concern in that regard. There is another angle when it comes to India-EU bilateral relationship is push for free trade agreement. So, EU President reaffirmed the EU's commitment to finalize free trade agreement FTA with India by the end of the year. So, that's the commitment. We are going to see whether this timeline will be followed or not. She described the FTA as a potentially the largest of its kind globally, emphasized EU's readiness to invest in shared future with India. Negotiations for free trade agreement are ongoing with hopes to conclude the deal by the end of the year 2025. EU Trade Commissioner noted India's tough negotiating stance and raised concerns about tariff and non-tariff barriers as well, such as India's qualitative control orders, or even the 14th round of FTA talks is scheduled now between 6 to 10 October in Brussels as well. So, we are going to see, push for FTA by the year end. There is joint communication and strategic vision outlined in that particular, strategy document as well. The EU released the joint communication outlining a renewed strategic agenda following the College of Commissioners visit to India in February. It identifies 5 shared interests and complementary strengths. So, what are these 5 shared interests and complementary strengths between EU and India? Remember these, 5 important cooperation areas between EU and India. There is first and foremost trade and economic cooperation. Obviously, it emphasizes on unlocking untapped potential in trade and investment, prioritizes finalizing the FTA, plans to reinforce supply chain and collaborate on critical emerging technologies. So, trade and economic cooperation is the first area of cooperation. Second is technology and innovation. Proposed deepening of tech cooperation, potential launch of EU-India startup partnership, invitation for India to join a Horizon Europe research program as well. So, this is very important point here. So, Horizon Europe research program is a premier program by EU to invest in, say, research and development in the emerging science technology fields. So, there is an invitation for India to join that particular program. We are going to see whether India participates in that particular program or not. So, scientific and technical collaboration is also important area of bilateral strength. So, when it comes to EU, there is another important term often in news is Trade and Technology Council. So, Trade and Technology Council. So, what exactly is this council and what is its role is again important. Just comment in the comment section what exactly is this Trade and Technology Council and in which particular areas this Trade and Technology Council focuses. So, what exactly is this mandate is important. Just know about it and comment your answer in the comment section. So, the third area of cooperation is security and defense. So, development of an EU-India security and defense partnership is on the agenda. Areas include maritime security, cyber defense, counter-terrorism and crisis management. Plans to negotiate a security of information agreement for classified data sharing as well. Fourth and most important, Indo-Pacific and global security engagement. So, this is also pretty much cooperation area between the two organizations. Focus on regional issues like the Indo-Pacific, hybrid threats and space and security. Intensified cooperations on Ukraine, sanctions and shadow fleet monitoring as well. So, we are going to see what sort of global security arrangement the bilateral engagement comes up with. So, but that is also important arena of say cooperation. Fifth is connectivity and global governance. Support for initiatives like India-Middle East Economic Corridor, strengthened EU-India trilateral cooperation with third countries and encouragement for India to uphold multilateral values and international law as well. So, essentially this India Middle East Europe Economic Corridor will actually connect India with EU through port and railway connectivity. So we are going to see what sort of the connectivity will be developed in that particular corridor, because due to ongoing Israel-Hamas war, we haven't seen that much development when it comes to India Middle East Economic Corridor. So in the upcoming times, if the IMEC is successful, it will actually challenge Chinese Belt and Road Initiative. So for that purpose only, the IMEC was launched way back in the way back in 2023, when India actually presided over that particular G20 summit. Mobility and people-to-people ties is again important. Pilot of European Legal Gateway Office to facilitate labor mobility. Proposed comprehensive mobility framework for study, work and research is also another area. Plans to deepen engagement with civil society, youth, think tanks and businesses as well. So deepening people-to-people ties is on the agenda as well. Balancing strategy in a shifting geopolitical landscape. The EU is working to deepen ties with India to prevent it from leaning too closely towards Russia or China. The EU Commissioner acknowledged internal EU hesitations but stressed the importance of strategic engagement with India at the same time. Both sides aims to adopt joint roadmap at the next EU-India summit in early 2026, despite current geopolitical complexity. So we are going to see what sort of joint roadmap the two sides comes up with in the upcoming EU-India summit, which will be happening in the early time of 2026. So given this particular roadmap on very important areas of cooperation, what exactly is the is EU? What are some basic aspects when it comes to EU? So European Union, it is obviously established in 1993 with Maastricht Treaty. So it is headquartered in Brussels, Belgium. Remember that 27 member countries are there. So you must remember each and every member country of EU. You must have seen, in 2025 prelims, UPSC has already asked the question on members of NATO. How many members are there, particularly within those group, which are members of, say, NATO countries. So you may get similar question in UPSC prelims, like they will give you the countries' names and how many of these countries are part of the EU. So just remember the EU countries, the 27 EU countries are Australia, Belgium, Bulgaria, Croatia, Republic of Cyprus, Czech Republic, Denmark, Estonia, Finland, France, Germany, Greece, Hungary, Ireland, Italy, Latvia, Lithuania, Luxembourg, Malta, Netherlands, Poland, Portugal, Romania, Slovakia, Slovenia, Spain and Sweden. So these are the 27 countries of EU. You must remember these countries' names. As I said, you may get a very important prelims question on that particular fact. So there are other key institutions under EU. There is European Commission. It proposes law and enforces EU treaties. Another important institution is EU Parliament. It is elected body representing EU citizens. European Council is also there. It is a head of member states. It consists of heads of member states, sets overall direction. Council of the EU, Council of Ministers is also there, which represents governments, passes laws with the Parliament. There is European Court of Justice as well, which ensures EU law is applied uniformly. And there is European Central Bank, ECB, which manages the euro and monetary policy. Common currency is there, that is called euro. It is used by 20 of the 27 members. So just tell me in the comment section which is the latest member country to adopt euro as its official currency now. So that was recently in news as well. So main goals: economic integration, peace and free movement of people, goods, services and capital. You can clearly see the EU member states in this particular map, very important map. So the exclusions are very important to note here. You can clearly see some countries, although they are prominently part of Europe, but are not part of EU itself. For example, there is a Switzerland. It is not part of European Union. Remember that. Nor is Norway, which it is also not part of European Union. Remember these important facts. Now, there is another important entity called European Economic Area as well. So what exactly is this European Economic Area? The EEA is an international agreement that allows non-EU member countries to participate in EU's single market. So the basic idea for EU is creating this single market so that, the forces of globalization will, make wonders when it comes to the global economy. It extends the EU's internal market, free movement of goods, services, capital and people to 3 non-EU countries. So, essentially EEA, European Economic Area, includes EU member countries plus 3 non-EU countries. So, the EEA includes EU countries and also Iceland, Liechtenstein and Norway. Remember these countries' names. So, Iceland, Liechtenstein and Norway are part of European Economic Area along with EU member countries. It allows them to be part of EU's single largest market. There is another important entity called European Free Trade Association. So, EFTA is also there. So, it is made up of 4 member countries: Norway, Iceland, Liechtenstein and Switzerland. So, these countries are not part of the EU but have formed EFTA, that is European Free Trade Association, to promote free trade and economic cooperation. Norway, Iceland and Liechtenstein are also members of European Economic Area as well, which allows them to participate directly in the EU's single largest market. Switzerland, while not part of EEA, maintains close ties with EU through series of bilateral agreements. Remember this particular difference here, very, very important. So, which is the only country, which has European Free Trade Association exclusively? That is Switzerland. Although, there are other 3 countries with same sort of designation, that is European Free Trade Association. These are Norway, Iceland, Liechtenstein, but they are also part of European Economic Area as well. So, it's little bit confusing, but you must remember these very important facts, very important from the perspective of prelims. All 4 EU FTA countries are part of Schengen area. So, what exactly is this Schengen area then? It enables the passport free travel across the most of Europe. EFTA focuses purely on economic integration without political union or shared institution like the EU. So, EFTA particularly is just for purely economic integration. So, remember that. So, Schengen area is sort of, passport free travel across the EU. It allows passport free travel across the EU. Another important, initiative that is mentioned in the article is obviously India Middle East Economic Corridor. It is a multimodal connectivity initiative involving India, US, Saudi Arabia, UAE, France, Germany, Italy and the EU itself. The Memorandum of Understanding MOU for IMEC was signed on September 9, 2023 at the G20 Leaders Summit in New Delhi. As I earlier said, IMEC is part of G7's Partnership for Global Infrastructure and Investment. So, Global Infrastructure and Investment, that is the Partnership for Global Infrastructure and Investment, is an initiative of G7. Remember that. It is seen as a counter to Chinese BRI, Belt and Road Initiative. So, what is the G7 answer to Chinese BRI? That is called Partnership for Global Infrastructure and Investment. And IMEC is itself considered part of that particular initiative of G7. There are 2 corridors under IMEC currently proposed. Eastern corridor that connects India with the Arabian Gulf, and then there is a northern corridor that will connect Arabian Gulf to Europe afterwards. You can clearly see the India Middle East Economic Corridor and some important sort of ports, the connectivity projects which will go through say Middle East, connecting India to Middle East and then Middle East to directly European Union. So, you can see important ports on that particular IMEC. As I said, Israel-Hamas war is creating issue for the operationalization or even starting of the projects under the IMEC. We are going to see what sort of developments will commence in that regard in the upcoming times. Another important point to understand here is the Partnership for Global Infrastructure and Investment. As I said, it is part of G7 initiative and it was launched way back in 2022. It aims to mobilize up to $600 billion by 2027 to address the infrastructure investment gap in developing countries. It focuses on sustainable, inclusive and resilient energy projects and otherwise. The European Union contributes the PGII through Global Gateway strategy, aligning its investment with PGII priorities to enhance global connectivity and resilience through international partnerships. So, PGII is part of G7 as an answer to China's BRI initiative. Remember these very important facts from the perspective of prelims. This is important practice question for you. Just comment your answer in the comment section. This is also important practice question for you. This is also ZAPAD 2025 military exercise. As I earlier said, it is currently ongoing. So, it is between which two countries? This is the basic question here. Just comment your answer in the comment section. I already told you that answer. So, the second important article that we are going to discuss is about COP30 talks loom as major emitters dither on updating climate goals. Although many countries, almost all the signatories have actually submitted the nationally determined contributions that they are adhering to by 2030, they haven't updated those climate goals given the current research in that regard. So, the ahead of the 30th edition of the climate talks scheduled in Belém, Brazil. So, COP30 will take place in Belém, Brazil. So, essentially Belém is a city in Amazonia of Brazil, which will the COP30 edition will happen in November. Major emitters appear to dither on declaring updated climate goals. So, major emitters haven't updated their climate goals. Only 29 of the 195 member countries have so far submitted their updated nationally determined contribution. So, updated nationally determined contribution are sort of mandatory under the Paris Climate Agreement. These are voluntary targets updated every 5 years by countries to regulate fossil fuel emissions. That is the basic purpose of nationally determined contributions. India has its own updated INDCs as well. We have all seen the India's Panchamrit goal. So far, all countries that are signatory to the United Nations Climate Conventions have submitted their NDCs detailing the emissions target up to 2030, but very few countries have submitted updated NDCs. Rather, only 29 out of 195 countries has done so by now. The case of EU is also, very interesting to know here. EU's internal climate commitments and challenges in this regard. The EU, comprising 27 member states and a historic leader when it comes to, pushing ambitious fossil fuel reductions, is yet to finalize a consensus on its nationally determined contribution. So, EU itself hasn't, updated its INDCs yet. So, this week EU members are set to vote on two critical climate agreements. So, the first legally binding internal commitment to reduce emission by 90% by 2040, and second is achieve carbon neutrality by 2050 and a target for 2035 aligned with COP30's NDC requirements. So, we are going to see whether EU is able to pass these two critical climate agreements in the upcoming times. However, the disagreements remain among member states, with major countries like France, Germany advocating postponement of the vote. Despite these differences, the EU plans to announce its updated NDC before COP30 starts on November 10. So, EU has actually committed itself to update its NDCs. The better we do not talk about US, means that would be better, because there is climate hesitancy when it comes to the US, particularly the current Trump administration does not believe in the in the climate goal and commitments in that regard. Global climate context and COP30 expectations. COP President Andre Lago emphasized that COP30 will focus on implementation rather than headline making ambitions. So, it will be an implementation COP, that is what he calls it. The Paris Agreement, ratified by 195 countries, mandated updated NDC submissions every 5 years, as I earlier said, to demonstrate progress in limiting global temperature rise to well below 2 degrees Celsius, aiming for 1.5 degrees Celsius. Emerging coalitions are forming around leadership roles as the nations prepare to meet these commitments and advance climate action in that regard. So, as I said, let's look at some of the basic points of say COP30. So, COP30 will take place in Amazonia. So, indigenous people will be at the focus in that particular summit, as said by Brazil itself. The 30th UN Climate Conference will take place from 10 to 21 November 2025 in Belém, Brazil. It will bring together world leaders, scientists, non-government organizations and civil society to discuss priority actions to tackle climate change, climate actions in particular. COP30 will focus on the efforts needed to limit the global temperature increase to 1.5 degrees Celsius, the presentation of new national action plan, particularly NDCs, and the progress on financing pledges made at COP29 as well. So, COP29 in particular happened in Azerbaijan, Baku. It agreed for all actors to work together to enable scaling up of financing to developing countries, parties for climate action from all public and private resources to at least USD 1.3 trillion per year by 2035. So, that sort of commitment was made at that particular summit in COP29. As the Baku to Belém roadmap to 1.3 trillion, negotiations are expected on how international climate finance is to be scaled from $300 billion agreed in Baku to $1.3 trillion now. So, we are going to see whether we will get to reach to that goal by 2035, but in the COP30 summit particularly, the roadmap for Baku to Belém roadmap to $1.3 trillion will be finalized to certain extent. The Brazil, the COP30's presidency intends to launch the Tropical Forest Forever facility as well as a signature achievement in Belém. So, Tropical Forest Forever facility will be launched in COP30 as a signature achievement in Belém. This is the $125 billion blended finance investment fund which aims to finalize investments from foreign sovereign funders by COP30 to begin payouts to reward forest conservation in tropical countries by 2026. So, for the tropical forest conservation, Brazil will launch this particular initiative, Tropical Forest Forever Facility, TFFF. So, we are going to see, what sort of, whether that particular outcome will be the final outcome of that particular summit or not in the upcoming times when it happens in the month of November. But let's look at COP29 and what are some of its key outcomes. So, as I said, COP29 was held in Baku, Azerbaijan in November 2024. The conference was the 29th session of the Conference of the Parties to the UN Framework Convention on the Climate Change. So, you must be knowing the basics of UNFCCC, bringing together countries to discuss and advance solutions for climate change. Obviously, Baku Climate Unity Pact. So, what are some of the outcomes here? The new climate goal, finance goal was announced. It calls on all actors to raise at least $1.3 trillion per year. As I earlier said, it is a Baku to Belém roadmap to 1.3 trillion. Adaptation, focus and support. The Baku adaptation roadmap was adopted to boost climate resilience, especially in vulnerable regions. Support program for national adaptation plans, particularly for LDCs. Particularly Article 6.4 of Paris Agreement was focused. This decision defined the missing aspects of the Paris Agreement's mechanism, authorization, registration of emission credits, sharing proceeds for adaptation, transition of existing forestry activities to this new mechanism, work on standards, tools, guidelines, baselines and adjustments additionality should be expedited and to be closely informed by technical and scientific expertise through expert panels, for example, for that matter. So, carbon credits and carbon market is focus of this particular Article 6 of Paris Climate Agreement, and that was actually reinforced in Baku as well. And we have seen the question on that particular Article 6 in the recent prelims of 2025. There is another important outcome of Baku COP29 summit, that is gender, civil society and inclusivity. Extended the Lima work program on gender and climate change for another 10 years. So, Lima work program, it is for gender and climate change. Remember that. Decision to develop a new gender action plan by COP30, greater emphasis on participation of indigenous peoples, local community, youth and civil society in climate policy and implementation. Loss and damage fund was also reinforced in that particular summit, although the loss and damage fund has its official establishment in COP27. Remember that. COP27 established that particular loss and damage fund. So, COP27 happened in 2022 in Sharm el-Sheikh, Egypt. It is an historic agreement to establish loss and damage fund to support vulnerable countries hit hardest by climate-related disasters. There marked the first time developed countries agreed to such mechanism after years of negotiation. Then in COP28, which happened in 2023 in Dubai, UAE, the fund was formally operationalized. Initial financial pledges were made with countries like UAE, Germany, UK, Japan, US, set up under the World Bank as interim trustee as well, though some developing countries expressed concern about governance. So, US commitment in this regard is now in question due to the Trump's actions. There is COP29 now, that is the COP29 which happened in Baku, continued work on expanding and implementing the fund. Discussions on long-term financing and governance structure were key topics at that summit as well. So, COP30 will further cement loss and damage fund. So, this is very important practice question for you. Just comment your answer in the comment section. The third important article that we are going to discuss is about Army to set up 19 drone training centers at premier academies. So, the Army is planning to establish drone training centers and hubs at 19 major training establishments across the country. So, very important news from the perspective of GS3 defense. So, the Army is planning to establish these drone training centers and hubs at major military academies. For example, there is IME, Dehradun, Infantry School in Mahao, the Officer Training Academy in Chennai and Gaya, and the School of Military Artillery in Devlali. So, at these premier academic military institutions, there will be drone training centers. In a limited expression of interest published in select vendors for the select vendors, the Army has sought a proposal for the purchase of training aggregates to establish state-of-the-art drone training facilities in 19 major training establishments across the country. The urgency of the move is evident from the fact that these purchases are being made under emergency revenue procurement. So, Army is showing some sort of urgency. The move is intended to integrate drone training facilities into standard training curriculum for all ranks, in line with the inclusions of drones as a standard weapon system in the defense forces following the Operation Sindoor. The facilities will provide training as well as certification at the same time. The Army Training Command has already initiated a roadmap to make drone operation a key part of every soldier's training. So, sort of every soldier now will get the drone training. So, that is the basic purpose. In Operation Sindoor particularly, we have seen the power of drones that can decide the overall warfares and its conclusion. The comprehensive drone training infrastructure for the Indian Army. So, training and that sort of module has also priority here. The Indian Army is establishing a large-scale drone training ecosystem across category of training establishments. This include 24/7 outdoor maneuver ranges, indoor training areas, drone training simulators, and allied infrastructure. These hubs will support training and certification for all Army ranks and are expected to fully operational by January 2026 as well. So, the training will be at the focus. Another important point to know here is procurement of drones and simulators. As part of the infrastructure plan, the Army will procure nearly 1000 drones at varying categories and capabilities, ranges from 200 meter to 50 kilometer, the drone range. Types, almost 800 plus drones. Essentially, those include nano, micro, small and medium by weight. So, these are types of drones according to weight category. There is nano drone, micro drone, small and medium as well. 140 first person view drones and 600 training simulators with compatible systems. So, there is procurement of drones and simulators under that particular training module. There is vendor training and responsibilities as well. Provide training on usage and maintenance. Conduct 4 to 6 day sessions at 4 locations of Devlali, Mahao, Dehradun, Bengaluru. There are these are that's where the premier military academy is located. Train 25 personnel per location. Supply instructors training material and equipment at the same time. Army's vision here is drone proficiency for all soldiers by 2047. So, given the hybrid warfare, which is at the focus of warfare nowadays, drones will become the mainstay of upcoming future warfare. So, drone proficiency for all soldiers by 2047 2027, not 2047, it is 2027. So drone proficiency for all soldiers by 2027 is the Army's vision. The Army Training Command ARTRAC has laid out a plan to ensure all Indian Army soldiers are drone trained by 2027. So it spearheads the integration of drone operations into the core curriculum of soldier training. Defense Minister endorsed this as a potential game changer for the army. So this is the main goal here. By 2027, every one of our soldier is drone trained. Organizational overhaul, integration of UAVs, particularly drones in combat units. In parallel with training, the army is undergoing an organizational transformation which includes standardizing UAVs and counter UAV systems as essential combat tools, deployment at the battalion level across multiple arms of the army. So, the most important thing to understand here is the type of drones based on weight that has been mentioned in this particular article. So, the first and foremost, important type here is nano drones. So, nano drones weigh up to 250 grams. Use indoor training, surveillance in tight confined spaces, civilian recreational flying. Regulation is also important, often exempt from strict regulations in many countries, including India. So, India doesn't strictly regulate nano drones. Nano drones weight up to 250 grams, remember that. Then there are micro drones as well. These are weight 250 grams to 2 kilograms, and generally they are used for short range reconnaissance, hobbyist use, limited law enforcement or training applications. Important here is to know some of the examples. DJI mini series indoor military trainers. Remember these examples as well. You may get a question in prelims in that regard. Small drones 2 kg to 25 kg weight. Generally they are used as a tactical military operations, border surveillance and commercial applications such as in agriculture, mapping, inspection, etc. Quadcopters, small fixed wing UAVs are part of small drones, are sort of small drones examples. So, medium drones weight 25 kg to 150 kg. Generally, these are used in military surveillance and tactical strike drones. Industrial inspections, high endurance commercial drones are also part of part of medium drones. Examples: medium altitude long endurance drones, male drones generally. There are large drones over 150 kg weight. They are used for strategic military operations, long range surveillance and armed missions, cargo delivery as well in emerging. It is emerging as a new field, large drones particularly. Heron 3P, MQ-9 Reaper and Rustam 2 of India is also a large drone. Remember that. Rustam 2, it is indigenously developed in India, is a large drone. So, by the way, MQ-9 Reaper is also a large drone. So, India-US defense partnership in that regard is important. UAVs and counter UAV systems. So, article also mentions UAVs and counter UAV systems. UAVs are, drones are unmanned aircraft, while counter UAVs are systems that are technologies designed to detect, track and neutralize drones. So, CUAV, counter UAVs systems are multiple methods particularly. It includes radar, radio frequency detection, optical sensors and signal jamming to detect and disrupt drones. Neutralization can be soft kill such as jamming force and drones to land or return, or hard kill as well, involving the use of physical means like nets or directed energy weapons to destroy the drones. So, that is sort of hard kill, and then there are soft kills like jamming the radars and signals. So, there are two ways you can counter UAVs. So, India's use of counter UAV systems, India does have counter UAV systems. So, India has significantly boosted CUAV deployment across the army, IAF and critical infrastructure in recent times. There is DRDO's D4 drone detection and disruption system in operation as a counter UAV system. It is capable of detecting and jamming drones up to 4 km, can soft kill drones using RF or laser based hard kill as well. Then there is a BEL's anti-drone system which uses which has been used during major events like Republic Day or G27 summit in recent times. Private firms like Gurutva Systems and Zain Technologies also provide indigenous CUAV solutions as well. So what are some emerging and innovative technologies when it comes to CUAVs, counter UAVs? There is AI powered auto targeting, swarm countermeasures, swarm drones you must be knowing, portable man pack systems, drone on drone combat, that is interceptor UAVs, and then there is a microwave weapons and anti-swarm defense as well. So just remember counter UAVs as well. India does have counter UAV capabilities with a major example being the DRDO's D4 system. Drone manufacturing in India in this regard is also important. So the current status and policy push is important to know here. After the drone rules of 2021, India eased regulation around civilian drone use, simplified permissions, cut down required forms, and made the regulatory environment much more friendlier. The government introduced production linked incentive scheme for drones and drone manufacturers in 2021. This aims to boost domestic production, reduce dependency on imports, and generate jobs as well. Recently, there is a talk of PLI 2.0 as well to further strengthen these particular institution and ecosystem. States are also stepping up. There is, for example, Madhya Pradesh example here, which has a drone policy offering investment subsidies, tax breaks, etc. Also, the first agri-drone indigenization hub has been set up in Chennai in recent times as well, which aims to manufacture traced agri-drones under Make in India initiative. Key players and manufacturers, there is Garud Aerospace, Asteria Aerospace, Idea Forge, IG Drones. So these are some of the indigenously, developed, manufacturing companies when it comes to drones. There are, although capabilities and gaps in that regard, major dependency remains on key imported components, flight controllers, motor sensors, rare earth magnet components, etc. are the import dependencies. So there are certain gaps in that regard, but the market size and projections in this regard of drone market in particular is tremendous when it comes to India. Estimates suggest the homegrown drone manufacturing market could reach almost 1.8 lakh crore by 2030. Current projections of turnover by 2026 are in the range of 120 to 150 billion rupees. Export and usage across agriculture, logistics, surveillance are seen as a growth area. So we have in recent times we have seen the mission drone Didis. So also government is promoting at a huge scale use of drones in agriculture, and in that case drone Didis will also promote women as at the forefront when it comes to drone use in agriculture. So women empowerment is also happening in that regard. So legal framework for drone safety, innovation and technological promotion in that regard is important. So the latest is draft civil drone promotion and regulation bill. So this bill is important. So know some of the provisions of this particular bill. It is released in September 2025. So it is very latest. So this draft will propose strict regulations for drone operations. Key provisions, what are some of the key provisions by the way? Registration and certification first and foremost. It mandates that all unmanned area aircraft systems UAS be registered and issued a unique identification number UIN by the Director General of Civil Aviation DGCA. Training and certification, only DGCA authorized organization can conduct remote pilot training. Penalties, violations could lead up to the fines of 1 lakh and imprisonment for up to 6 months as well. Confiscation powers are also given to the DGCA. The government has opened the draft for public comments until September 30, 2025. So you can, made some of the objections to the provisions in this particular bill as well. So this is very important practice question for you. Just comment your answer in the comment section. So drones again, important important part of the current system of hybrid warfare. So another important article that we are going to discuss is about government to push geothermal pilots under the new policy. So government notifies policy for geothermal energy, sanctions projects to assess viability as well. So geothermal energy is emerging through this particular policy as a major focus area for achieving net zero carbon emissions by 2070 goal. The Union Ministry of New and Renewable Energy on Wednesday notified the national policy on geothermal energy to reinforce efforts for energy transition and achieving net zero emission goal of 2070. India's new national policy on geothermal energy seeks to build on interest from research firms in US, Iceland, Norway to test its commercial viability in the country. Companies from Iceland and Norway are looking at R&D and pilot projects in the Gulf of Cambay, Arunachal Pradesh and Uttarakhand. So, under this particular policy, the government is promoting, investment by the companies from say Iceland and Norway. So, there may be, pilot projects involving the companies from these particular countries now. So, the geothermal energy taps the earth's heat from hot water springs on the surface or reservoirs deep underground using steam to spin turbines and generate electricity. So, we have seen, geothermal energy, it uses Earth's original own heat from hot water springs or the surface reservoirs in that regard. And, in turn, the steam from this particular water springs will help to, spin the turbines and generate electricity. That's the basic concept of geothermal energy. It is a renewable source of energy and also harnessed from hot rocks for heating and cooling, greenhouses and aquaculture as well. The Geological Survey of India (GSI) has mapped 381 hot springs nationwide with surface temperature between 35 degrees Celsius to even 89 degrees Celsius, whose exploration and development the new MNRE policy released on September 17 aims to support. Additionally, the government will explore technological collaboration with US, Indonesia, especially for enhanced geothermal systems for large power plants as well. Why particular these two countries? Because those two countries are leaders when it comes to geothermal energy. US and Indonesia are the current leaders when it comes to production of geothermal energy. Very important. India has an estimated 10.6 gigawatt of geothermal potential. It is just a potential. It is not like India is producing 10.6 gigawatt. Remember that. It is the potential which could rise with further exploration. But currently it is estimated at around 10.6 gigawatt. Key sites lie in the Himalayan geothermal province covering Uttarakhand, Himachal Pradesh, Ladakh, Jammu and Kashmir and Arunachal Pradesh, as well as Gulf Cambay Graben in Gujarat, home to several abandoned oil wells, and Andaman and Nicobar Islands as well. So, Andaman and Nicobar Islands also have some of these geothermal energy locations in particularly. Globally, less than 17 gigawatt of geothermal capacity is harnessed. Less than 17 gigawatt at the global level is harnessed through geothermal energy. So, geothermal energy has many applications. For example, it harnesses the heat from Earth's crust. As I said, high enthalpy sources like volcanic regions and hot springs are mainly used for electricity generation. So, that steam and then spinning the turbine and then it creates electricity. While low to medium enthalpy sources such as hot rocks and shallow ground layers serve direct use applications like heating, cooling and agriculture. Geothermal heat pumps like GSHPs are also used in that regard. Geothermal system includes production and reinjection, wells, pumps, transport, distribution heat exchangers and end use components as well. Geothermal power provides continuous 24/7 electricity. That is true. Reliable base load supply and grid stability, lower greenhouse gas emissions and enhanced energy security, especially for remote areas. It offers opportunities to repurpose idle oil and gas wells, aiding the low carbon transition. As the end of 2024, as of end of 2024, global geothermal power capacity reached 15.4 gigawatt. As I earlier said, it is less than 17 gigawatt currently. The United States lead in geothermal capacity, followed by Indonesia and Philippines. So, remember these three particular countries. So, now we have this particular policy in place, national policy for geothermal energy. What's its vision? To establish geothermal energy as one of major pillars of India's renewable energy landscape, contributing significantly to national climate commitments, 2070 net zero goal and energy security, while establishing sustainable, secure and responsible geothermal energy sector. So, that's the very comprehensive, very futuristic vision that is there for geothermal energy. What are some of the goals outlined in this particular policy? To improve research capabilities, to collaborate with ministries, international geothermal development bodies and various companies, etc. To deploy geothermal heating and cooling solutions, including ground source heat pumps like GSHPs and other direct use application, to decarbonize buildings, agriculture and industry. So, that is very sort of far-fetched goal here, but still, it is possible to establish and promote advanced geothermal exploration to build robust public-private ecosystem. As I said, yeah, generally, there is 100% FDI currently allowed in renewable energy projects. So there is an interest shown by the companies from Norway and Iceland in recent times. As I said, when it comes to geothermal energy, capacity building and knowledge sharing is also one of the goals. So what are some of the geothermal potential, sites in India? Since 1973, GSI has identified, as I earlier said, 381 hot springs with surface temperature ranging from 35 to 89 degrees Celsius. Apart from Himalayan regions, where reservoirs resource temperatures can reach around even 200 degrees Celsius, India generally falls within a medium to low heat enthalpy zone with resource temperature of 100 to 180 degrees Celsius. This makes it suitable for a range of direct applications such as GSHP for building, heating or cooling, greenhouse heating and cold storage, etc. Currently, the 10 geothermal provinces in India identified by GSIR. These are very important from the perspective of prelims. Remember that. So, GSI has identified 10 geothermal provinces. These are, first and foremost, there is Himalayan geothermal province. Second, Naga Lusi, Andaman and Nicobar Islands. Fourth one, Son Narmada Tapi, that is Sonata. Fifth one, West Coast. Sixth one, Cambe Graben, that is in Gujarat. Then seventh one is Aravali. Eighth one, Mahanadi. Ninth, Godavari. And 10th, South Indian Cretonic. So these are 10 geothermal provinces currently, identified by GSI. So GSI has also identified following geothermal energy sites. So there are some, prominent geothermal energy sites identified by GSI in this regard. First and foremost, there is very famous Puga, Chumthang, Gayak, Demchok, Nubra, Galhar in UT, Ladakh. So these are all the sites in Ladakh. There is Siddhu in Jammu and Kashmir, Manikaran, Kasol, Tattapani, Tapri in Himachal Pradesh. So Manikaran in particular is famous, for hot springs. Tapoban, Gari, Joshimat, Juma, Jamnotri, Gaganani, Beda, Jyoti, New, Dar, Behti in Uttarakhand. These are some of the sites identified by GSI in Uttarakhand for potential geothermal energy. There is Sachu, that is Tawang, Takshing in Arunachal Pradesh, Pulak, Yumensamdong in Sikkim, Sohna in Haryana, also Sohna is also very famous in that regard, Bhimband, that is Munger region of Bihar, Surajkund, Tantloi in Jharkhand, Bakreshwar in West Bengal, Tattapani in Chhattisgarh. As I earlier said, there is Anhoni in Madhya Pradesh, Dholera, Tuwa, Tulsi Sham in Gujarat, and very famous Manuguru in Telangana as well. In Maharashtra particularly, we have Unavare, that is in Khed, Satvali, Tural in Maharashtra. These are all places with, say, hot springs and potential geothermal energy sites. So there is, implementation framework which has been given by MNRE. You can see the implementation framework clearly here. Developmental model and deployment in that regard is also important to know. Just go through this particular slide. Guidelines for states and union territories are also, given in that particular policy. Allocation of geothermal blocks with exploration permits for 3 to 5 years. And then there is, single window clearance systems as well for ease of, doing business. Provisions for long-term project development up to 30 years are also there. So this is very important practice question. Just comment your answer in the comment section. Very important from the perspective of energy security in GS3. In the decoded section, we are going to discuss some one important article titled Securing Valleys and Slopes. So important analysis by, for my NDMA member himself. In recent times, we have seen lot of disasters, particularly, flash floods in recent times, particularly in Dehradun. So the monsoon 2025 has affected Jammu and Kashmir, Himachal Pradesh, Punjab, Uttarakhand in ways that remind us of changing climate and unforgiving terrain. That is very true. Cloudbursts, landslides, floods have brought tragedy to hundreds of families, disrupted pilgrimages and devastated crops. We have all seen the devastating images coming from these particular regions of, say, North India, particularly the Himalayan states. Amid the grief, the disaster management apparatus has responded with speed, coordination and innovation. So the disaster management, has seen tremendous growth in recent times. when it comes to India. So soldiers, airmen, engineers, paramilitary forces, disaster response professionals, and perhaps most inspiring, local volunteers have stood shoulder to shoulder to save lives. Local government officials have not been far behind. In Uttarakhand, a deputy commissioner walked over 36 hours to reach flash flood ravaged Dharali village. So this is the dedication, this is the type of that dedication that has been showed by the local administration as well. So just remember, just note down this particular example here. The deputy commissioner walking over 36 hours to Dharali village, flash flood ravaged village. That's what is called, going beyond the call of duty when it comes to, administration and good governance. Remember that particular example. You can utilize such examples effectively in your ethics as well as good governance related answers in GS2, GS4. So recent incidences in this regard are very, tragic. For example, we all know what's the situation in Jammu and Kashmir. Extreme rains in late August caused severe floods across Chenab and Tavi River, resulting in over 140 deaths in Jammu and Kashmir. The army quickly deployed Bailey bridges and helicopters, while NDRF and security forces evacuated stranded yatris from Machli and Vaishno Devi routes. Then there is a situation in Punjab, river Ravi, Bia, Satluj swelled, causing record floods at record inflows at Bhakra and Pong Dam. And we have seen, the analysis, the reasons for Punjab's flooding due to, say, dam mismanagement in our, recent article of NDMA coordinated with various agencies to manage dam releases and prevent disasters. So NDMA does, have worked in that regard. Himachal Pradesh, torrential rains triggered landslide flash floods, especially in Chamba, Kullu and Lahul Spiti regions. Then there is example of Uttarakhand. The army constructed 400-foot aerial cableway, repaired bridges and deployed engineers and security and rescue dogs, particularly for, rescue purposes. So the examples here are telling. So Indian Himalayan states need to wake up, not just, from the perspective of, say, disaster preparedness, but post-disaster recovery and, those sort of efforts are important. So not just, disaster resilience, but resilient infrastructure is also important to build now. So India's disaster response, the first and foremost is use of modern technology in disaster response. So there are certain positive signs. Modern technology has been used when it comes to disaster response. India's disaster management today is professional and layered, leveraging advanced technologies such as drones, satellite communications, OneWeb links, Doppler radars and IMDs, now casting capabilities. The government's agile response reflects a strong emphasis on innovation. However, to be truly ready, future ready, the Himalayan region technology must be scaled up significantly. Although we have seen the use of technology, modern technology in particular, but the scaling up is needed to, to be better prepared when it comes to disaster preparedness. Second, enhancing predictive capabilities. Key institutions like Geological Survey of India should expand landslide mapping using soil saturation and slope data. The National Remote Sensing Center must monitor glacial lakes and debris flows continuously. This is very important. The GLOF events we cannot prevent the GLOF events, but if, there is sufficient, say, monitoring of these lakes, we may get sufficient time to avoid the worst effects of the disaster. GIS-based risk mapping is essential, while drones should extend their role to predictive surveillance of slopes, rivers and glaciers. So GIS maps, use of drones is also encouraged. Artificial intelligence integrated with localized meteorological data can improve flash floods and cloudburst forecasting. So improvement in forecasting by using AI is also important. Models like Gorakhpur urban flood control system are often replicable best practice. So this is very, very important. Gorakhpur's urban flood control system, urban flood control management system. So what exactly is this Gorakhpur urban flood control system? It is an innovative model designed to manage and mitigate urban flooding in the city of Gorakhpur in UP, which is prone to heavy monsoon rains and waterlogging. So what that particular, system does is it improved drainage infrastructure to quickly channel excess rainwater away from populated areas. That's what the first focus of that particular control system, model system. Floodwater storage and retention zones to temporarily hold floodwaters and reduce pressure on drainage, early warning systems and real-time monitoring to anticipate flooding events and enable timely response. At the same time, community awareness programs to educate citizens on flood preparation and response. Gorakhpur model is considered a replicable best practice for the other Indian cities in this regard. So remember this particular very important model. You can utilize such examples effectively in your disaster management related answers when it comes to say urban floods or related issues. Third important point to understand here is community awareness and preparedness. So despite widespread SMS alerts and the Sachet app, many citizens remained unaware of appropriate responses. Vulnerable pilgrimage sites continued to attract visitors during even red alerts. Risks are worsened by unchecked construction, slope destabilization and lax enforcement of building norms. We have all seen the pictures. Citizens need to be well informed about evacuation routes, relief shelter locations and response protocols. NDMA's Aapda Mitra program, very important example here. Aapda Mitra program is a positive step but requires wider reach into schools, local governance and communities. So when it comes to community awareness and program, there is NDMA's Aapda Mitra program as well. So what exactly is this NDMA's Aapda Mitra program? It is a community-based disaster preparedness initiative launched by NDMA of India. It aims to train, empower local volunteers called Aapda Mitra, friends in disaster, that is the English meaning, to act as the first responders during emergencies and disasters in their own communities. So it is sort of a bottom-up approach. It trains local volunteers, it builds capabilities at the local level, community awareness at the local level, bridges the gap between say the official disaster response and the local communities. So regular mock drills and disaster training must be prioritized as well. The armed forces involvement strengthens professional disaster management understanding. So by the way, fourth and foremost is also to focus on recovery, reconstruction and resilience post the disaster. Effective disaster management extends beyond response to the recovery and reconstruction, emphasizing build back better. Building back better is also important. As I said, resilient infrastructure is also very vital in this regard. This includes rebuilding roads with slope stabilization, reinforcing river embankments and controlling illegal mining. So this is also very important. In Himalayas particularly, there is illegal logging, mining. So we have to control these illegal activities. Doppler radar network should be expanded for better valley coverage and early warning systems for cloudburst, landslides and glacial lake outburst floods must be localized. A skilled community of disaster management professionals is very essential. Civil society's local knowledge should be integrated into district disaster authorities. Sustainable construction, seismic code adherence and strict enforcement of no-built zones near rivers are very vital. Building resilience must guide development in the ecologically fragile Himalayan region. So these are very important points here. Just remember that. You may get directly question how Himalayan states need to handle the frequent disasters. So in conclusion, we can say this monsoon has revealed the strength of India's disaster response and the gaps that remain. Our soldiers, responders and civil administrators have done their duty, often at the great risk to themselves. But disaster management is not the government's burden alone. Every citizen must treat disaster preparedness as seriously as voting or paying taxes. Only then can India be truly resilient in the face of climate change and infrastructure development. So this is very important. So India's disaster response must not be just the government's responsibility alone. It becomes the responsibility of each and every one of us. So, we need to have this bottom-up approach. Some of the innovative solutions which are suggested in this particular article are very vital. Particularly, just note down the Gorakhpur's urban flood control system. Because many times, when it comes to urban floods, many people don't know some of the models from India itself that they can say emulate. in their own cities. So this is very important practice question for you. That's it from my side, and stay tuned for another edition of Daily News Analysis. Thank you.